is Stephanie Looney. I'm a part-time night court learning leader here at Paul Mitchell School, Clear Lake. And today I'm certifying for my level 1 haircutting specialist. So entering cosmetology school, haircutting had to be the most exciting skill that I wanted to learn and to master. Before anything else, before color, before texture, before anything, I wanted to learn how to cut. I grew up in a salon world, going to the salon with my grandmother and my mom every weekend, and it always amazed me how the pixie cuts would turn out. So my grandma always had short hair, very short hair. She kept it short for years and years and years. And she would go every 2 to 3 weeks to get it cut, to get it trimmed, to get it styled. And I always just sat and tried to mimic the movements of her stylist while she was cutting her hair, because I wanted to know, how did you get it so short? And after you got it so short, how did you curl it like that? So it always amazed me how short hair could work, how different ways you can get short hair, because each time she cut it, she did not use the same technique. She always used something different. She maybe used a different tool. She probably styled it a different way, but I always liked how pixie cuts turned out. So pixie cuts piqued my interest with cutting. Feel free to follow along with your skills cards in your iPads, and you will gain a better understanding and knowledge of the principles of dimension, your body mechanics, and phases of a haircut. So height, width, and depth are the 3 dimensions of haircutting. Each and every haircut are affected by these 3 dimensions. Height affects the haircut vertically, meaning up and down, or from front to back, or to reference the bone structure. Apex to your nape area, which is your neck. The width affects the haircut horizontally from side to side, or masseter process to masseter process. So from behind one ear to the bone behind your other ear, from side to side. The depth is the length of the overall haircut. As you can see, her length is medium short. It stops at her neck. That's the depth of the haircut, and it is affected by both the height and the width. So although depth is explained last, we consider it at Paul Mitchell the first step of your consultation, because you have to know how long the guest wants their hair in order to choose how your height and width would affect that. So these are the key factors I would need to consider for my guest preference. And you can find these in your texture app. So first we have texture, which is fine, medium, or coarse hair. We have formation, which is the curl pattern of your guest hair. So straight, wavy, curly, or coily. We have density, which is the number of hairs per square inch. And we have the current condition, which means what the guest is doing to their hair now and not when they were born. Suitability would be my professional recommendation to that guest according to these key factors of her hair. So if a guest comes in with low density hair and she wants to make her hair look full, we would consider my suitability for her would be a 1 length, because it makes you look as if you have fuller hair. So height affects the haircut vertically, again meaning from top to bottom. So height is controlled by elevation, which is the lift of a section from its natural fall. So if I pick up this piece of hair, I'm elevating. The cutting line controls the steepness or the length of the vertical section. So if I have my comb, I'm taking my comb all the way down. This would be my cutting line right here, and it controls the length of my haircut. Elevation plus our cutting line will result in our technique that we will be using to get the specific haircut that the guest desires. So within Paul Mitchell School Systems, we use 3 ranges of elevation to help us identify what technique we'll be using for a specific look. We have 0, 1 to 89 degrees of elevation, and 90 degrees of elevation or higher. 0 degrees of elevation gives us our 1 length techniques. This technique is recommended again for the guests who come in with low density hair and they want their hair to look full. We'll provide them with that full look because all vertical sections are coming down to 1 length, and as the sections stack on top of each other, it gets full at the bottom at your cutting line. Next, we have 1 to 89 degrees of elevation, and this will give us our graduation technique. In a more simple definition, graduation gradually grows in length. So short at the bottom, longer at the top. Last but not least, we have our 90 degrees of elevation, which gives us our layering technique, which you will probably see more often than any haircut on the clinic classroom floor. Layering is the removal of length from apex to your mastoid. That makes sense? Any questions? So within Paul Mitchell School Systems, we do recognize two forms of layering. One will be convex, meaning the rounded outward, the top round of the circle, and concave, meaning rounded inward, which will be the bottom round of the circle. Convex layers are our typical long layers, and they follow the round of the head. They are elevated 90 degrees. So I will take my section here, I will elevate 90 degrees, I will cut, and that will be my layer. Our concave layers are our short layers, our more dramatic layers. We do have a lot of people that do like these. They are shorter at the apex and longer at the temple or the mastoid process. On our mannequin head here, we have our short layer here at the apex, and as we get towards the mastoid process, we have our longer layer right here. Our cutting line is determined by where you place your shears at the section of hair being cut, pretty much affecting the length. So if I'm cutting a graduation, my cutting line will make sure that my elevation is correct. So here's my cutting line right here. Does that make sense? Any questions about the cutting line? Concave layers, which is the inward rounded. My cutting line will be a vertical, making the inside layer shorter at the apex and the longest layer at the mastoid process when it falls. Width is the horizontal dimension, and it's controlled by over direction and the cutting line, which results in the shape of the haircut. Our over direction is the movement of the section toward or away from our face. The cutting line again controls the length, and the geometric shape is the result of those two put together. Over direction would be the distribution of length horizontally within a haircut. We have three over directions. We have forward, backward, and forward, backward. Forward over direction gives us shorter in the front, longer towards the back, and that will create our round geometric shape. Round geometric shapes brings out a slimmer face guest than it would for a round face guest. Our lower body position in relation to forward over direction, we will need to sit ourselves in front of the section that we are cutting. I'm trying to get a round geometric shape. I'm in front of the section that I'm cutting, and it just feels natural for me to pull that hair forward because I'm standing in front of that section. Next, we have backward over direction, which gives us longer in the front and shorter in the back. This will benefit our round face guest. It will enclose their face a little bit just to make it look a little slimmer. And our lower body position in relation to a triangular geometric shape, we have to set ourselves behind the section that we are cutting because again, it just feels natural for me to pull that section towards me if I'm standing behind her or standing behind that section that I'm cutting. So make sure your lower body is behind that section so you won't feel uncomfortable because I can't backward over direct. If I'm standing in front of her, it just does not feel comfortable. And 9 times out of 10, my cut won't be as accurate as I need it because I'm not standing in the right position. And lastly, we have forward and backward over direction, which will result in an even distribution of length in our haircut, and that comes out to the square geometric shape. When you say square geometric shape, your guest is going to think, oh my God, I'm going to have a box haircut. It's not true. It's not entirely true. Forward, backward over direction. So I have this as my reference point, and I'm taking hair from the hairline. I'm taking this hair to be my reference point. What am I doing to this piece of hair? I'm over directing it backwards. And if I have this piece of hair by the crown area, and I'm pulling it to this reference point, what am I doing with this section of the hair? I'm over directing it forward. So with a square geometric shape, I can have forward or backward over direction because of that shape. So my lower body position in relation to forward, backward over direction, it just varies on what segment or section that you're cutting in reference to the head. So if I'm over here, it might be forward. If I'm up here, it might be backward. So it just varies. One length cutting line, and of course that controls the steepness of the haircut. So say I want longer in the front, shorter in the back, my cutting line will demonstrate it all the way down. And as you see, my comb is a little tilted towards the front because I want that length, my cutting line, to go steeper in the front than it would be in the back. Concave. If I wanted shorter in the inside and longer in the back, my cutting line will look like this. In groups of 3, in using the cards at your table, I would like for you to match up the cards for over duration and the range of degree to the correct haircut that are placed on the mirrors. You will collectively discuss why you matched those certain over duration and ranges of degree with that certain haircut. Next, we will hone in on sectioning. So cutting and color placement go hand in hand. So you can find more about sectioning in the Color System app. Sectioning is how you will work through your haircut. Segments are larger areas that identify the changes in the bone structure. So from apex to mastoid process, this will be one segment. From mastoid process to mastoid process would be one segment. Throughout those segments, we have panels. So I have my mastoid process to mastoid process segment. I will have 2 panels within that segment. The panels are within the segments to control the changes in sectioning. Within our panels, we have sections. And sections are partings that control your elevation, your over direction, and your cutting line. For example, within a graduation haircut, we have 2 panels within our one segment in the back nape area below the occipital bone, and then we will have 2 panels in that segment, and then we'll have diagonal sections within that panel. Make sense? Any questions? So we have 3 sections that we go by here at Paul Mitchell. We have horizontal sections that go from the temple to the occipital bone or from the mastoid process to mastoid process. And these sections are typically used for one length hair techniques. We have vertical sections that go from the apex to the mastoid process. And this is typically used for our layering techniques. And lastly, we have diagonal sections that live anywhere in between horizontal and vertical sections. Diagonal sections can be used to connect those 2 depending on what the guest's preference is. So horizontal section holds the most control over the horizontal dimension. Our vertical sections has the most control over our vertical dimension. And our diagonal sections have influence over both. Diagonal section can be either forward or backward. For example, if I'm cutting a guest a round geometric shape haircut, I will have a section of diagonal back because that will result in shorter in the front, longer in the back. If I have a guest that would like a triangular shape haircut, my section will be diagonal forward because that will give me a longer in the front, shorter in the back. Any questions? So using the Color System app, I would love for you guys to go ahead and diagram a one length haircut so that we can turn in for professional development, and I know that you guys understand the sectioning part of haircutting. Now we will learn body mechanics. So we have your lower body that assists in over direction, as I explained before. We have our upper body, which controls over direction and elevation. So I'm using my arms to do elevation and over direction. And we have hand position, which controls your cutting line, finger angle, and tension. For example, my hand position this will give me my cutting line. It also gives me my tension. As you can see, I can pull or I can let loose. My finger angle. So wherever my fingers are pointing, my cutting line is affected by that as well. So freehand cutting is cutting hair in its natural fall. My arms control elevation over direction, and my hands control elevation, cutting line, and finger position. So freehand, I'm not using any of those. I'm using just freehandedly. In comb allows you to control your section of hair using my comb. In comb, self-explanatory, I'm bringing my vertical sections all the way down and I'm cutting under my comb. That's typically used for our one lengths. We have palm to palm or in hand, which allows us to use our fingers and is typically used with our graduation cuts. And our graduation cuts gradually get longer from the bottom to the top of the head. And we have overhand, which is used for our layering techniques, and it allows you to control elevation and tension when layering. So as I just explained, my finger angle supports my section angle and it affects my cutting line. So if I want my graduation, my finger angle will be at 45 degrees, and of course that affects my cutting line. It also affects kind of like the precision of your cut as well. So you want to make sure that your fingers are in the right place so that you get the right angle. Tension is the amount of stress or stretch placed on the section that you are cutting. It's most effective in our layers because we have to elevate, we have to keep that tension so that our cutting line isn't lacking or it doesn't dip or make a hump. You just want to pay attention to your tension when doing certain haircuts. Dominant cutting is explained as the way we naturally cut. So I am right-handed, so my dominant cutting will be, I'm standing on the right side of a client. I will naturally cut from my shoulders to the inside of my chest. I'm standing on the left side of my client. It's typically the same thing because I'm right-handed. I'm going from my shoulders to inward to my chest. My section angle accuracy is the hand position and finger angle, and that helps my cutting line. Last but not least, we have the phases of our haircut. So you will determine your phases of a haircut through your consultation, so always pay attention, make sure you're listening. Typically, we would determine the shape of the haircut depending on the desired results that your guest wants. We will key in those factors of texture, formation, and current condition of the hair to fit the suitability that we would give to the guest. Again, these terms can be found in your texture app. So to cross-check, you will take horizontal and vertical sections to check the accuracy of your cutting line, and it will also help you check the accuracy of your elevation. You will blow dry and smooth your cut in preparation for your refinement, which gives you the opportunity to clean up, detail, or soften the look of your haircut. And of course, your style and finish is dependent on your guest end result, either the picture she showed you or what she explained to you throughout the consultation. I wrote a few review questions. So what geometric shape will result in long in the front and short in the back? Yes, of course, a triangular geometric shape. How does layers affect a haircut? Layers remove length from the haircut. What does your lower body position affect within a haircut? It does affect over direction. So if I'm standing behind a client, I will get longer in the front, shorter in the back, but I have to be behind her to get that result. So for home plate, I would like for you guys to go into your cutting app and watch triangular graduation and round graduation. And I would like for you to come back Thursday and discuss what you learned different from this lesson or in depth that you didn't get from this lesson. So to reflect, I would like for you guys to write down 5 key objectives you took away from today. For rehearsal, I would like for you guys to partner up with someone different than the mix matching game and write down what haircutting objective will help you the most personally to execute a haircut on the clinic classroom floor. To commit, I would like for you guys to diagram 2 haircuts in the cutting book and to take your mannequin and perform a square 1-length haircut. And I would love for you guys to come back and show me how that turns out.